Black like me. Black like me. Black like me.
You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hey, good people. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. And I'm so excited to be talking with someone who is a dear friend, someone who I trust and connect with. And when I went to see Wicked and was trying to think through not only the great production that it was or the great film that it was, when I thought about who do I process this with? Who do I know who's in the industry? Who do I know that works in this world who could have this discussion with me? You're the first person who came to mind. So my friend is Mrs. Angela Robinson. She's an American actress and singer, best known for her portrayal of Veronica Harrington on the Oprah Winfrey Network's primetime soap opera, The Haves and the Have-Nots, a role that earned her a Gracie Award for Outstanding Female Actor in 2015. Born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, Robinson graduated from William M. Raines High School and Florida A&M University, where she was crowned Miss Florida AME. I'm still thinking church of A&M University. She moved to New York in 1982 to pursue an acting career, performing in various Broadway and off-Broadway productions. Notably, she played Dina Jones in Dreamgirls at the Paper Mill Playhouse in 1995, and Shug Avery, I love this, in the U.S. national tour of The Color Purple in 96.
And Broadway.
And Broadway. Thank you for that. Yes, ma'am. In 96, Robinson married stage actor Scott Whitehurst, and in June 2018, they adopted their adorable son named Robinson Scott, better known as Robbie. Miss Angela, thank you for being on my podcast again. Welcome back to Black Like Me.
Oh, it's so good to be here. It's always good to see you. And I never, ever have a problem talking about theater and the arts anytime. So thank you for having me.
Oh, sure. You know, a couple things that come to mind before we jump into the subject at hand. Since we've talked last, I have now crossed the 200 mark in terms of dropping podcasts. So I have now recorded over 200 podcast episodes. So I'm going to tell my team we're going to produce some clapping up in there, because that's so I'm very, very excited about that. That's something that when we sat down and started thinking through this, I wasn't sure how long it was going to go or how long it was going to last. I'm here with the same producers, Jeremy and Eli, who are flanking me here in this virtual studio, were with me when I did episode 1, and they just keep getting better and better and better. So I just want to say that just to so that's put an extra pep in my step and a lot more excitement. So thank you for being here in this season, because it's a big one, it's momentous, and I love that you're a part of kicking this off and being a part of this early this season. So thank you.
Of course, and congratulations. I feel so honored because I was with you early on.
Yes, you were.
When
Yes, you
started
were.
the podcast, and now I get to come back and visit and see all your progress. 200. That's amazing. So
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I think when you were on last, Miss Angela, I think I asked you a couple of icebreakers. And but I just wanted to deviate from that a little bit. It's still under the heading Black Icebreaker. But in Florida, were there soul food items that in the Midwest or the North we might not think as soul food, but it was a staple within Black cuisine that was part of Floridian Black soul food? Does anything that come to mind other than like rattlesnake bites or something? Were there Were there with
No,
gravy, with
we
gravy, of
didn't
course.
eat rattlesnake. Now some folk may have, but we didn't.
I shouldn't have said
Um,
that. I shouldn't have said that.
but you know what I can remember aren't things that I may have particularly eaten, but I can remember people talking often about eating coon.
Oh, down in Florida. Got you. Now, Jackie, my wife is from Alabama. They ate a lot of coon down there.
Yeah, they ate a lot of coon. Some folks ate rabbit.
Yes. Squirrel?
And I didn't hear a lot about squirrel, but definitely coon and rabbit. So much so that when I was little, I had a pet rabbit and I had two ducks. And they got so big. My little rabbit was the hood rabbit. He hopped up and down the street.
What was his
But
name? Wait, was his name King? You know how
his
black folks
name, his,
used to name their dogs that roam the community King? Was your rabbit's name King?
no, my rabbit's name was Rabbit.
That
People would
is
say,
ghetto. That is
people
ghetto.
would say, Angela, Rabbit down here. So
You better come and get him before I make it. So I mix him with some dressing. I
come
got some
and get
sweet
Rabbit.
potatoes.
And so I had two ducks and a rabbit, and my ducks got so big that my dad had to build this fence outside, and they woke up the whole neighborhood and quack, quack, quack. And finally, I had outgrown wanting a rabbit and two ducks, but they got so big. And one day I noticed, I was like, I don't hear the ducks. Has anybody seen Rabbit? And no one spoke to me. No one said anything. And finally, I said, Dad, and I'm now involved in school. I have a boy. Life is, happening
Sure.
differently. I'm not. And so I said, Dad, I haven't seen Rabbit or the ducks. And my dad said, So I said, what does that mean? So he said, did you enjoy your dinner? So he was trying to say that I was eating.
I saw that on an episode of Carol Burnett when they did Mama's Family, where Eunice couldn't find her pet Fluffy or something like that. They ate Fluffy. So you're like, Dad, I haven't seen Rabbit, and why are those biscuits out? Like who ate those biscuits? And Dad, what's that gravy? Angela, that is Miss Angela. I'm sorry about that. That is.
He said I wasn't eating it. He said it was a joke, but he did. Whoever he sold them to, I'm sure they enjoy it.
Wow.
Rabbit.
Wow. It's so funny in the Midwest. We don't always think of Florida as the South. I mean, we just think of Florida as Florida.
Right.
But when I've been in certain parts of the South, like driving through Mississippi, in certain parts of Alabama, I found that when I went to restaurants, what we would typically call soul foods, it was being enjoyed by black and white folks. Like if there's a straight up soul food joint, typically it's where the black people hang out. But like when we ate at Drury Inn, like that's one of the big hotel chains we drive through the South, they had like grits on the breakfast menu. Like in Wisconsin, you
Yeah.
can't find grits in a restaurant, much less at a restaurant in a hotel. But
Yeah.
black and white folks were eating it. I was in Mississippi. I was in a place that was very, very rural, and we went in because we were on a tour. We were doing something with Covenant and these Sankofa trips. You might have heard Pastor Peter talk about it, but it was like in rural Mississippi. We went in, and there was a white gentleman sitting. I know this sounds stereotypical, but bib overalls. He had a baseball cap on. He was sitting with his wife. He looked just like he was trying to make America great again. But when we were eating, he hollered back to the kitchen. He said, "Hey Jacob, you threw down on these ribs today, or these greens are just fantastic." Like that was community. It wasn't odd. It wasn't like, what's this white man, his family? You could tell when you sit at the table and you talk to the kitchen, they know each other. So I guess that's just a long background. But just asking, did you find in your experiences in the South that with certain kinds of foods, it was not really black soul food as much as it was maybe Southern cuisine, and various groups ate that? Was that a reality or something you experienced?
Yeah and no. So Florida is definitely the South, depending on what part of Florida.
Yes.
Once you get beyond Orlando and get into the Miami, South Florida, then that's a different vibe. But the Florida that's close to Georgia and Alabama, we Southern.
Yeah.
So I would say that we, all as Black people in the South, we could easily differentiate between Southern cuisine and soul food.
Could you?
They are, yes, they are two very different things, and that one involves seasoning. Uh,
Mm,
Another involves um, what you're what meat are you using? Are you using a nice piece of hog to season your greens? Now we're into smoked turkey, of course,
oh
but still,
yes,
are you using some smoked meat? Are you putting raisins in your potato salad? They're just, they're just,
I
are
hate
you
it when that
making
happens.
are you making a green bean casserole, which could be considered Southern? Or are you making some green beans on the stove with the potatoes and the meat?
That's right.
So
Yes.
it's a little different. Now everyone can enjoy some parts of both. If I see somebody serving a Southern cuisine, I know immediately that it's going to involve cornbread, a good vegetable, something fried. I'm still good with it. But I know the difference if it goes to soul food. Soul
Got
food
you.
is going to be seasoned a little better
Mm.
to my taste
and it
bud.
might be a little more fattening. It might it might
Uh,
it might
Pretty
have a
much.
little oil
Yeah, it's
riding on the
gonna
top
have
of
some.
that.
Yeah, it's gonna have some high blood pressure.
Okay,
Uh,
okay. No. I really appreciate that. And I want to say to many of our non-black listeners that when we talk about eating coon, that's short for raccoon. So people would really either people would really eat that. I don't want people listening to say, oh, what did they
I
just
know.
say? No. And I also heard this that when you skin a raccoon, it looks a lot like dog. And so in some of the butcher shops, you have to keep um, one of the feet on, or paws, or
Wow.
whatever that's called, so that you know that really is raccoon or coon meat and not a dog. If you have to go through all of that to prove that is not something else, it just point me to the salami aisle,
Right. Exactly.
which is probably everything I've been trying to avoid back in the butcher section anyway.
Right.
Ah,
You know what I will say? It was like a delicacy, right? Because
that's what I heard.
I think the way it was talked about around me as a child, people would actually come and say, "Hey," to my mother or father, I got some coon. You want me to bring you some? It was like I got
Like,
something very
I'm good.
special.
I'm good.
And my parents would always say, "No, I'm all right," but it was something special.
Man, but you know what? People lived off the land. They
Yeah.
didn't have the ability. There were no Walmarts. There were no meat centers, and so folks they would fish and hunt and you know do the kind of stuff I used to watch. Happen on Beverly Hillbillies. Like I used to watch stuff that Jed, and Granny used to do, and realize, man, people really did that kind of stuff. So no, thank you for explaining that because I thought that would be an interesting icebreaker to talk about some of the Southern food, a la Southern Florida. So thank you for sharing that
Yeah,
with
I
me.
just found out recently, and you probably knew this because Alex B. But I just found out recently that the reason Black people like, and I can enjoy a medium um, steak, but the reason Black people like their food cooked
Well
well,
done.
yeah, is because we would get the worst of the meat and we
Right.
had to cook it. I hadn't even. I was like,
Yes.
oh yeah.
We'd have to slow roast it to make sure that it was done well, but it's also why we would eat hoghead cheese,
Hmm.
snout,
Hmm.
pigtails, pig
Hmm.
feet, oxtails, because we'd be thrown the worst part
The worst
of
part.
the animal, but we knew how to slow roast that and put over a fire and put some barbecue sauce and some hot stuff in it and some peppers and turn it into a delicacy. But we took what was the worst in our society, and what was
Mhm.
given to us, and we did something with it so that we could feed our children with it.
Yeah.
We are some resilient people.
Yes.
We are resilient people. My goodness. Listen,
Mhm.
if you haven't been able to discern already, Miss Angela and I are good friends. I respect her work so much. We've got a handful of mutual friends who are really dear. Um, when I'm in New York, and I love to do that for my birthday. Her husband helps to host me in the city because he knows I absolutely love me some Manhattan and some Harlem and hanging out in the in the city. And I have to tell you this because I told one of my buddies this that I was going to be interviewing you, and he said, and this is such a shame because he's a good man. He's also a pastor. He said, "Not that huzzy." And I said, "Wait, you not you."
Oh my
He
Lord.
said, "I
Oh
said
my
what you're not gonna do is talk about Miss Angela like that." And I said, "No, no, no. She's a sweet lady. I know her husband." He said, "How many she got?" I said, "No, she's got just the one." He said, "Listen," he said, "I got discernment. There ain't no way she could act that good. There ain't no such thing unless she really hateful like that." I said, "Boy, shut up. This woman is an actress. It's called acting." But I want you to know, and I know, let me just, when you listen, I grew up on soap operas, on stories, because my grandmama used to watch me after school. And so I remember Phoebe Tyler on All My Cheering. I
Yeah.
remember Dorian Lord in One Life to Live over there in Landview. There was a mean
Mm-hmm.
lady on Edge of Night. I can't think of her name, but I can see her. General
Mm-hmm.
Hospital, I can't remember it was Heather Weber, but it was some other people that was all jacked up. But I got to tell you though, Angela, I got to tell you, when I watch the haves and the have-nots, I actually had to ask myself, do I want to be friends with this woman? The way you talked about your son, the way you shot people, the stuff you did, the people you connected with, the way you played off getting shot in the I'm just telling you, you were a trip. And I hope whatever universe there is for like the replaying of some of that stuff, I hope more of the world gets it. Will get it because I'm telling you, you acted your behind off in that
Wow.
show. And I loved your acting, but I kept thinking, but do I know? Do I really? Do I need to pray for Scott? Like, is Scott safe? Who let this woman and Scott adopt Robbie? Have they watched her filmography? Have they asked her? Has there been a lie detector test? Because I don't know, Angela. I just don't know.
Well, let me tell you. First of all, thank you. And thank you to your friend. Um, that's the best compliment that anybody could give me. It's hard for me to believe that we've been off the air for 3 years
Mm,
and I still get that. And I still, have I too have a show um called Artist Talk, and
yes.
we're in our fourth season. And I decided at the end of our season, last season, I was going to do a Q&A just with me. And I said, I don't have a guest. I just want, whoever, live on Instagram wants to come in and ask me a question, come in.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about artists and survival and training, all this wonderful spirituality as an artist. We're talking all this wonderful stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just going to going to ask. And normally my assistant will vet questions. But this time we thought, let's just bring in whoever wants to ask a
Right,
question. Uh, Bishop,
ma'am.
I said I have failed in my Instagram messaging because ain't nobody have no question about no artistry.
They want to know
All
about
they wanted to know
Veronica.
was Veronica. Veronica, Veronica, Veronica. And at first I was like, well, this show isn't on the air. So why are we talking about Veronica? I want to talk about like my show and growth as an artist. And no one had no questions about that. So I at first I was disappointed, and then I realized what a compliment
Yes.
that a show can be off the air that long and people still be thinking about it and thinking about things that I said. There's a whole thing on TikTok about things that the
Yes.
character
Yes.
said. I'm so honored. And in all fairness, Tyler wrote it. He wrote the craziness and then allowed me to do play with it. He allowed
I
me to
love
play
it.
with it.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. The way you looked at people and told them don't try you, and you meant. I mean, you. I would watch the show. And let me tell you, Jackie and I binged it. There were nights, and this was like early on. We caught it like early on in the pandemic. There would be
Yeah.
nights I'd come down for work the next morning, because she wasn't working Mondays and Fridays. She was only working Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So like a Sunday night, we may be watching it. I come downstairs and she would look at me and say, "Don't judge me. Don't judge me." I said, "Girl, don't tell me you've been sitting in front of this TV. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. The devil is a lie." She would watch like 5 episodes. There were like 2 times I can remember she watched it all night long. And she said, "Alex, your friend is a trip."
I had the best time. I did.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I want to get you onto some other stuff. I just have to let you know that my friend Ray talked about you. And so I'm gonna get him straight. Let him know
Yeah,
there's
get him
acting.
straight.
Yes.
Tell him no.
Yes. I
No,
would tell
Veronica
him.
retired.
That I
She
would
gone.
tell him that. Remember when we had lunch one time after church in Jersey, you recorded a short video for me to Ray. This is the same friend.
Oh, is that?
You
Oh,
said,
God.
"Ray, I'm not hateful. Ray, come on." He listened to it, said, "Mm-hmm." He said to all of his friends, they're like, "You know her? Why is she talking about you?" And all these years later. So I'm going to convey it to him again. Let me do
Please
that.
convey it to
I,
Ray.
I,
When I come, I want to meet Ray.
okay, I'm going to tell him he's going to love it and hate it. He's going to probably bring his conceal and carry, but he will do it. He would love to.
I'm gonna bring my husband
That's it,
there.
because he's scared. He is scared of you. Oh my goodness.
That's so sweet.
It is. So listen, Miss Angela, Wicked.
Yes.
Wicked. So first of all, got a chance to see this on Broadway some years ago and loved it. We brought Lexi there. Listen, she's 28. She must have been about 13. So maybe 10 or 15. This is when the original stars were in it. I didn't know really what to expect. I just thought I'd seen The Wiz, so I thought it was going to be like a white twist on The Wizard of Oz, sort of the way it was with The Wiz. But it was so different, the backstory and everything. But I didn't think much about the colorization. I didn't think about what the green represented and all of these things. But then with Cynthia Erivo playing it with Ariana Grande, and my daughter, Lexi, just said, "You got to see it. She read the book. We went there. First of all, I just thought it was acted out really well. I was surprised and blown away on so many levels. And of course, I'm just asking myself, where in the heck has Miss Cynthia been? Because her voice is transcendent. Like, it's just in that role, in that space. But I started thinking about, what is it that they're saying about color and race, and is green the new black? And I've got some other questions I want to ask you behind that, but I'm just curious, was I just new to seeing that when it was on the big screen, or was that still the emphasis when it was a stage production? Because I just completely missed it when I saw it originally on Broadway.
Yeah.
I just wanted your thoughts about that.
I think it changes things when a Black woman plays a role.
Talk to me about
It-
that.
and it's so unfortunate because the person is painted green, so it shouldn't matter
Right.
what color the actress is. But I think it changes everything when you see a Black woman playing that role, trying to fit in, trying to be accepted, trying to have equal rights. When you see all of that, you see it through different eyes. Now, I am very good friends with the first Black woman who played the role on Broadway.
Okay.
And her name is Say Khan, and she was the understudy. So they've often had Black understudies on Broadway, but never a Black full-time Alphoba. And it was always baffling because you're like, well, the person is green, so what difference does
Right.
it
What
make?
difference does it make?
Right, right. But there will be, starting in March, the first Black full-time Alphoba on Broadway. So we're all very
Wow.
excited about that. But I think you saw it differently because you saw those locks, you saw those braids. You knew it was Cynthia
I saw those
Erivo.
cheeks,
You
those
saw the
cheekbones.
features, yes, and also you saw the juxtaposition of the blonde,
Yeah.
Ariana Grande. So I think it just changed the way people looked at it. It's the same musical. They didn't really change much else. We just saw it differently because it was sort of in your face a little more.
Wow. And do you think that grew because of Miss Cynthia's role in it, or do you think that was the intention? Who's the director? Is it John Cho? Am I saying his name right? Is it John Cho? Do you think that was the whole idea that we're going to really bring this to life because we think that a black
Yeah.
woman being in this green makeup can state something differently. But I wonder even if he and others were surprised at how poignant it was for her to say those lines. Because even though they would talk about green in my head in that theater, I kept hearing black, black, black. Although I
Oh,
knew they were
black.
saying green, but
Yeah.
that's what I heard. It's what I felt like. I felt those lines. I felt that reaction. I could
Yeah.
identify with the reality of what I was seeing.
Yeah. I think it definitely may have surprised them that it was
Hmm.
so poignant. Um, not a whole lot because I think everybody saw the reaction or what they felt when the few black women that I know played the role on Broadway. Um, but also, when you went 13 years ago, the world was different. You
Yes,
were experiencing the world differently
I sure was.
than the way we're experiencing the world today.
Right.
And everything is so relevant in that movie today. It was still relevant then, but it just wasn't so, it wasn't an open sore. It didn't feel like everything felt so sensitive. And when I say sensitive, I don't mean we're being sensitive. I mean just everything hurts. It
Sure.
feels like
Yes. Yes.
I have to protect myself everywhere I go when I log on to social media, when I read the news. There's these defenses that go up that, oh, they're going to say something that hurt me or that insults me. And so we're a little bit we can see it. Our eyes are open in a way that it wasn't 13 years ago.
So as an artist, talk to me a little bit about your appreciation of this very real subject being brought into the mainstream, but not being couched in your typical black and white, like using sort of this camouflage, not, no pun intended, but this camouflage of green. Does it make you think about your industry and your craft differently? Does it make you realize the potential of of the stage or the big screen to help talk about these in a way that maybe doesn't make people as defensive, because we're not talking about historical facts, but more of this sense of how colorization has impacted the caste system and apartheid and of course American history. Just curious how it makes you feel about your industry as you see such a powerful message being carried out.
Art, when allowed, can be a powerful tool. And that's why it's so important to allow artists to tell stories in all kinds of different ways. And I promise you that if Wicked hadn't become a big, huge musical, it wouldn't have been greenlit to become a movie. People who greenlight movies would have read it and said, yeah, no. But because it was already a
Right.
huge musical, it got greenlit to become this movie. And I hope that it can help people to greenlight even more things, because there's messaging, and I think messaging is important. And as Christians, we have a lot that we want to say through our
Right.
art
Right.
that we don't have to beat people over the head with. There are so many ways to tell a story, and they just found one. If you look at that story, you see family dysfunction, you see colorism, you see racism, classism, all of these things,
Sell out. You see people
insecurity,
selling out.
selling out, people standing up, fighting the power. You see all of it in a fairy tale. And I just think we have to, as artists, free ourselves up to tell our stories, and hopefully it'll get greenlit. But everybody has an idea that they want to tell, but it doesn't always get greenlit. And then we have to go back to the same old way of telling the story. Hopefully, this will help people to keep exploring ways of telling stories about justice and overcoming and acceptance. I
Hmm.
hope that that's what happens here. Um, and also, I hope it says a lot to casting, because
Yes. Yes.
you know, this was one of those I get all the time, these roles that say, we're looking at all ethnicities. And I think that's great. I'm certainly not saying you should have looked at only only this group or that group.
Right, right.
Um, but I was around when Black women were excluded from playing that role, and
Mm, mm.
so I am, and not, not blatantly.
Right, right.
Just no one ever got the role, and it's a role for a big voice, and
Yes,
we
it
got
is.
some big voices.
Yes,
So
true. No, we definitely do.
yeah, so I'm really glad that now it's sort of obvious when there are roles. There are certainly roles that you can't pick and choose the race of the people. There are families, there are time periods to consider, and
Right.
all of that. But there are other roles that this is a fairy tale, and the person is painted green. There is no reason why their race should have ever come into play.
Exactly.
But now the role will always be black because now there's a messaging and a theme around it that
That's so interesting, Miss Angela. Man, oh man, is it crazy out here. And I don't think it's just me. Look, it's 2025. Trump is back in office, and some days it seems as if the sky is falling. There's so much uncertainty in the world right now, but I love that sitting down right here in front of this mic and letting the hard truths rumble out of my heart and off my chest is as certain as it ever was. Season 11 is gathering steam, and you're in for a real treat. Let me just tell you. When I reflect back on all the seasons that we dropped here at Black Like Me podcast, each of them has had a special purpose, a one-of-a-kind lineup of guests, and its own unique feel. I also think about the thread that binds them all together. What we do here at Black Like Me is unique. I don't have another space that feels just like this, where I can really speak from my unique perspective. And the guests who have on the show remark that these interviews they do here are unlike any others that they've done in other places. Sure, nobody else does Black Icebreakers, but that's only part of it. We have created a truly unique space here where honest conversations about the thoughts, the ideas, the policies that affect Black people and that Black people care deeply about. And you know what? It isn't easy. And I don't do this all alone. I have an incredible team that has steadily grown over the years, and each person that joins adds another asset to what we can do here. And all of you that support us on Patreon, my people, my people, my people. We simply would not be able to do what we do or get what we have gotten without you. So as we look to even bigger and better things in the coming season, please help support the show right now by clicking the link to Patreon in the show notes and join the community of people supporting this unique and provocative space. In the world that we're living in, where there's so much attack on our perspectives, our history, our bodies, and our lives and contributions, aren't you glad you have a place where you can still hear powerful, exhilarating, intellectual Black thought like you do? I enjoy it. And so if you do too, share the good news, tell friends, click that Patreon link now. Thank you so much for your support of Black Like Me podcast with Dr. Alex G. So you talked about how this role will always be Black, but let's talk a little bit about, let's explore the hopeful ripple effect in Hollywood itself. So from political worlds, we see the role that Black women have played. Stacey Abrams and the work that she did in Georgia. But when I think about Hollywood, I'm seeing a lot of new Black male actors, young actors who have British accents. So they're coming from the UK or a lot of them from the UK. I'm not saying I can't think of the ones that are getting big Netflix stuff. Like I'm thinking about a lot of these folks. I don't know if I'm seeing a lot of new Black women coming on to the scene. So I guess I'd love to know either what you're seeing or what you're hoping for in terms of Hollywood's openness for Black female actresses in roles that are not really centered in race, but just about life. Do you think we're moving in that direction with this? What are your hopes?
We're not there, and it is my hope that we get there. I mean, the truth of the matter is, as much as we love her, Cynthia is from the UK.
She is.
So, uh, and she got to play Harriet Tubman,
I gotta say, and she played
and she
Harriet
did a
Tubman.
wonderful job. Yes.
But she
So,
it's interesting,
mhm,
but a British black woman played
mhm,
a black American historical figure.
yeah, and you know, kudos for her.
Right.
I'm not hating on any actor
Sure.
that gets
Sure.
work.
Right.
And she's hugely talented, of course. I'm going to back up a minute. You asked where has she been, but she was a wonderful Celie
That's
in The
right.
Color Purple on Broadway, um, and sang the mess out of it. So she's a Broadway baby. Won the Tony for that. But you know, we get our favorites in any
Right.
industry,
Right.
and it's
Right.
one or two, maybe three. No, one or two, and then
Sure. Sure.
and and my hope is just that we see talent and we take a chance,
Yes.
and it not be about, oh, this person is box office, this person we don't know, they've never done anything, but that they take more of a chance on really, really talented actors. Somebody had to take a chance on Cynthia, and I'm
Right.
glad they did.
Yes.
Um, but we
Yes.
have to know that there are really so
Mhm.
many amazing Black actors that play a range of types of
Right.
roles. So we, one, have to write them and green light them to be done, the roles, and then be bold and courageous and hire people of color and culture, different cultures. I mean, I feel very strongly about it as a Black woman, but I feel very strongly about it for Asian American actors. I feel
Yes.
very strongly about Asian American actors getting more roles that are different,
Right.
that are unique, and that they are hugely qualified to play.
Right. Right. When people think about Hollywood, we think about just making movies, but Hollywood is also casting companies, it's directors, it's writers, um,
Mhm.
and so I'm wondering if things like Prime Video, Apple TV, Netflix, those various groups are giving opportunities for more Black actors to step into spaces. Because when I use those subscriptions, I can't believe the number of shows that have Black leads. I just don't remember that in the past few years, but particularly, and I guess Netflix is not independent. I think about it not being like the MGM or the Fox Studios or the ones I thought about while growing up. But I'm noticing as these other groups are growing in popularity, they seem to be more open. Now that's I don't know if that's still considered Hollywood. I mean, I'm sure it is, but what I mean is it's not the old standard. Warner Brothers are the ones that I used to think about like in '60s and '70s, and you know reading about my idols in Hollywood or what have you. Is that do you are you noticing? A, is the trend acceptable to you? Are you excited about the trend of just seeing more of these movies that are made about Black people, but having Black people in as leads?
Uh it's getting better. The thing about these show, of course, with streaming, you get to see tons and tons more content.
Right.
Um, a lot of the content that's unique and different lasts maybe one season or two. Uh,
Hmm.
the world doesn't even hear about it. Most people don't even know that the show exists.
Hmm.
Thankfully, with Tyler has a contract with Netflix, and thank goodness, like when he made the 688,
Wow.
um, people knew about it. And wasn't it a great movie?
It was fantastic.
Yeah, so, happy about that. I just want the streaming services to not only green light a project, but stick by it and
Hmm.
promote it and make sure the world knows that it exists and give it an honest chance, and then on top of that, pay the actors their worth, because a lot of times you're talking maybe 8 to 10 episodes. 8 to 10 episodes of one season is not really a lot.
Right. I mean, your
And
character was still developing in the haves and
yeah,
have not. Like from the early episodes, it's much different than what you were saying and doing in say season four. And so
yes,
there needs to be time for that character
time for it to marinate.
development. You know, when
Mhm.
Hollywood makes movies, it hits the big screen, so it has a greater viewing audience and greater scrutiny, and you see it months, if not a year after it was filmed. With Broadway and plays, you're seeing things in real time. So I'm curious, does that put more pressure on stage productions to think more about the times and inclusion and representation, or do they have the same kind of crutch as Hollywood? We can't find folks. Will those groups come to our plays? Are they going to buy tickets and come down to Broadway to see this? So I'm curious with that real time sort of impact. Does that work for or against our dream of it becoming more reflective of society?
It's the same.
Mm,
Broadway tickets are expensive.
sure.
And so the risk, a lot of producers aren't willing to take a huge risk on something that hasn't been done. Um, but there are times that you get an Audra McDonald and a George C. Wolfe willing to revisit Gypsy, which is what's happening now on Broadway,
Hmm.
and make the main characters black and make magic. And what they are able to show to the world is that a lot, and they didn't change anything in the script. And
Right.
Gypsy
Right.
is a very old musical, but we're able, Wicked and Gypsy are both able to show the world that these stories are valuable and meaningful, and they do change depending on who's telling them, but it doesn't change the value at all. So hopefully that will encourage producers to cast their shows and use the wonderful tapestry of cultures and colors that they have access to. Um, there is beauty in all different cultures, and so
Of course.
if you decide that I'm gonna see this beauty, I'm going to find avenues for all of this beauty to be a part of the work, then you are an industry that says, I see the world and I want the art to reflect the world. It won't do that in every show. That's a silly expectation that for every show it has to be the
Right.
tapestry.
Right.
But as a broad standing back and looking, you should see every person should be able to log on to Netflix and find something that they can relate to. And I think that's what art should do, expose people to things that they can relate to.
Sure. Sure. I've got a question for you, but it's and let me know if you say, well, as an artist, I don't want to comment like that on the work of others, and we'll edit that right out. But one question I have is, if you could put a director's hat on right now, you could sit in that director's chair and have that little bullhorn. Um, were there things that you saw in Wicked that you'd wish, come on, let her say that a little bit more strongly, or let's not make that moment so comedic, so that we can really feel the impact of that, or oh, I wish she had reiterated that. So I'm curious, as for all that it's getting, and it is a fantastic film,
Hmm.
in terms of how it touched upon the impact of black female acting, or that role, and not just that she was a performer, but she brought life to it. Like, she wasn't hollow, she brought very real life. And I'm sure I have enough friends who are black and from the UK who talk about some of the very same things. But I'm just curious, as a professional, as an acting professional, do you sit back and think, if only they could have said more of this, or they could have. I'm just curious what kind of take you might have had on this as you sat there watching it, thinking what could have been underscored to make that point a little stronger. Are you at liberty to reflect on that?
I think the subtlety is why we're talking about it.
Mm,
I think
sure.
that the subtlety is what made
That's
everybody
powerful.
go home and say, "Was that? Did that? Was I never? Huh?"
Right.
You know. So I can't say that I would have something and say, "Oh, she should have pushed that," or "They should have pushed this," or um. No, I think it's.
That's a
Of course.
good. I like that insight. Now,
Mm-hmm.
now I don't know Ariana Grande's work that much. I know some of her music because, of course, I've got a daughter that's from that era. I thought she did a really good job. I was surprised by the
Wonderful.
acting in it, but I wonder sometimes if the comedic timing and she has it, if it somehow overshadowed the poignant moments, or was that a part of the sugar that you take to make the medicine go down? Did you need her to be over the top, Miss Thang, Miss Cutesy, Miss, did we need that in order to take the seriousness of what Alphoba was feeling? And I'm not gonna ask you if that's a fair assessment on my part because I'm not asking you to comment on that. But I guess I'm wondering.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Um, of course, Christian Chenoweth did the same pretty much on Broadway. And I don't know. I don't think she could have needed to tone that down. Um,
Because I certainly
however,
saw it certainly showed how folks who operate in the same space who seemingly want the same things, one can be so out of touch and well intentioned. Like she wasn't.
yes.
This was like after their friendship had formed, so she
Mm,
certainly wasn't trying to cut her off. But it was so
mm-mm.
interesting how you could be in the same place and care for folks and be so oblivious. And maybe that was the brilliance behind her piece is that it helped you to see how folks who are so well intentioned can be so misinformed and so out of touch.
Yeah, there you go. And
Answer my own
I think
question.
that's the case. Yeah. But I also will tell you that they did tons of takes and they kept the takes that told the story that they wanted to tell.
Mm,
And the thing about film, unlike stage, film is a director's medium. And so it really is about the editor and the director choosing the story that they want to tell. And so if in fact the goal was to tone her down, it would have
it
happened.
would have happened. Got you.
It
So
would
there's
have happened.
there's a purpose of it because it made the cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
This probably exists, but I just haven't seen it. But I've got to do some Googling to find out the original actresses and their take on the evolution of the discussion around race and the impact of a role or roles that they played being reprised in a different world, and even if it makes them think about race and culture different. And again, I'm sure that that's out there. I just have missed it. So that's sort of I think I'm just
Yeah.
asking that rhetorically, like, are
I would
they?
love to know that too, because, Adina Menzel, who played the role on
Yes,
Broadway, um,
she played it when I
has,
saw it. She was incredible.
yeah, I mean, she won the Tony for it. She and Christian Chenoweth were up against each other for the Tony, and she won it. And she, you know, has a black child, um, was married to Taye Diggs.
Right, I forgot that.
Hmm. And so I would be interested in hearing, how she feels about the evolution of a role that she created. I do know her to be someone who's hugely open and thoughtful about these things.
Sure,
So I'm sure she's spoken about it on in some way. We just have to Google it. I bet we'll find that
sure,
she has
sure,
spoken about
sure.
it. Yeah.
Another question comes to mind, Miss Angela. You and I commented a little bit on the fact that I'm building this Center for Black Excellence and
Mm-hmm.
Culture here in Wisconsin because we're losing our vibrant Black community that's choosing to live in larger urban areas or even moving back to the South,
Yeah.
which makes people gasp here in Wisconsin because we can't believe that Black people would feel more comfortable in the South than they do in accepting warm and open-minded and woke North. We know that that's facetious. Am I being facetious?
Say
But
that cuss word. You better not say that cuss
I
word.
know, I know. Forgive me, Lord. Forgive me, Lord. But yet, what I realized, the reason why I'm building this and raising tens of millions of dollars to create this space for theater performances and plays and concerts and gathering of Black dignitaries from West Africa and the Caribbean and Afro-Latino communities and countries. How do we, build a broader footprint and a stronger connection between these groups? We're doing it because we're so tired of asking for permission. Can I perform here? Can we bring this band? Can we do this kind of cuisine? Can we do this kind of signage? And so I'm all of that background to say we certainly want Hollywood to evolve. We want Broadway to evolve. But I think, your former boss, Tyler Perry, reminded us of something, that when we find the opportunities to create our own, to hire our own, to do it our own way, it does make a difference. And so I guess in your opinion, what would help create more, and I don't want to say Tyler Perry because everyone wants to take someone to model after him, but folks who have the sensitivities that he does and is willing to hire us. I'm sure not just as actors and actresses, but people behind the cameras as well, or casting companies. Is it access? Is it not having enough capital to do it? Is it that we need more people to think creatively about this and to fight the good fight to become, owners of their own studios or their own casting companies, production companies, lighting companies? What do you see as a major barrier for points of entry um, for businesses and agencies we start to help tell our story?
Wow. Well, the thing I will say about Tyler is Tyler had a dream,
Mm-hmm.
and Tyler stuck to what his plan was. He wanted to tell stories about Black people that were similar to the Black people he grew up with.
Right. Right.
Those stories resonated with, older Black people at that time and made him hugely famous and hugely rich.
Hugely.
Yes. And he could have then said, okay, Mr. Man, I want to please you. I want to be one of you. I want to be accepted in this world of Hollywood. What do I need to do? But he didn't do that.
He went across the
He
country
said,
to Georgia.
yeah, he said, I'm going to open my own studio and tell more of these stories. That's what I want to do because that's what I was given.
Mm.
And what happens so many times, and you've seen it, we get an opportunity to tell one story and it's a huge hit. Then we go, hey, Mr. Man, accept me now.
Right.
What can I do to please you? And then everything gets watered down because we are trying to please.
Wow.
So Tyler is a great example because even through much criticism,
Yes.
a lot
of criticism.
he sticks to the gift and the story he was given to tell.
Yes, he
And,
does.
if you ever get a chance to go to Georgia and go to that studio, you will probably weep to think that this man built this place from his dream and from sticking to his guns.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Miss Angela, you're saying yes, we need those opportunities, but when we are in those spaces, to stick to
Yeah,
our
we got
guns, to stay true. Because if I'm hearing, is that what you're saying, that yes, we need people in those spaces, but it's not as if they don't exist. Not all of them choose to follow it through the way Mr. Perry has. Like he stayed
yes,
true to that. Others want to be at A-lister parties and do certain things, and then their
yes,
voices are co-opted, I imagine. And then there's
yes,
no one left to tell our stories other than folks who may, if they choose to tell it in blackface in a way that makes us shake our heads.
yeah. and everybody, and we've other examples, Shonda Rhimes.
Yes. Oh,
Uh,
yes.
Everybody's story doesn't have to be like Tyler's.
Right.
Everybody's, we all have a story, and even you have one. You're not a filmmaker, you're not an artist in that way, but I bet you have a story in you that you said, if I was going to make a movie, I have this story about blah blah blah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and you would be able to hand that if you met someone to say, listen, this is something that's been on my heart. We all have it. The problem is sometimes once that story gets told and we have a vision of more, we accept the payoff instead of pursuing the
Ooh,
more. And
the
I
payoff.
believe that that thing that's in the heart that was given to us, the story that was given to us to tell, Chonda Rhimes is doing a British what's the name of it? I can't even think now. Um
Yeah,
um
I can't think of the
but
name
it's
of it.
so good. It's so good. Um and no one would expect that from her. But
That's not the one with the two
you know,
spies. It kind of makes me think of like two. No, no, that was a TV series a couple
no,
years back.
Charlotte, let's see, what is, yeah, I'll look it up. But, I just think we all have such different, wonderful stories to tell. And we just have to stick to it and stay true and not have to conform. Now, sometimes, when you need these dollars, and I understand that. But I was looking at we're talking about Wicked, and one of my favorite songs on Wicked, I was looking at today, The Wizard and I.
Mm-hmm.
And it's similar to what we're talking about in terms of getting these opportunities because she said, once I'm with the wizard, my whole life will change. Because once you're with the wizard, no one thinks you're strange. No father is not proud of you. No sister acts ashamed. And all of Oz has to love you. When the wizard, you're acclaimed. So it's like once I get the big hit,
Right. Right.
everything will change. So in
Ah,
essence, without getting to be too, in
you're good.
essence, if I have a little proximity to whiteness, everything will be better, and I will be able to uh, be make all the films that I want. When the idea really is to just stay true to you and the
Right.
story that you were given to tell. And
Mm.
I promise you, all people, white, black, Asian, all people will get to behind you because they'll see the truth in that. Do you know the people that behind Tyler, that, Netflix and the deal he has Netflix, the deal he has Amazon, those, they're not all black people,
No, they're not. But because
but
he
they
stayed true
still,
to his gun, stayed true to his mission, they see that he draws my. It wasn't just the Spike Lees and the folks that talked about him in the early days. It was, the reviews. I read those. I read those things about. I remember when Tyler Perry was doing plays in Chicago. Like my mom and other church ladies would get in the church van, drive 3 hours to Chicago, have lunch, and watch the dude in the Big Mama dress do all of this
yeah.
stuff. So when he hit the big screen, I was like, that's who my mama used to go see. But he saved
Uh-huh.
his coins and owned that voice so
Yeah.
that he could do this. But he was happy at that table, at the table he created, rather than the table he craved. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you stated that. I imagine you know her, but I love Debbie Morgan. Um,
Yes,
I still,
yes.
you know what? I don't care where I see her. I still call her um,
Angie.
Angie. Angie.
Yes.
What's her last name? Angie Tucker. No, Angie Hubbard. Angie Hubbard from All
All
My
my
Children.
children.
She was
Yes,
married to Jesse Hubbard. It was the first
Jesse.
young black couple because it was like Greg and
Hmm.
Jenny. Then it was Greg and Angie. And it was my first time. I was in college seeing like a young black couple getting married, getting together, and all this kind of stuff. But she was on an. I saw her on Instagram or something said Tyler Perry um, paid her more money than she had ever made in her entire life, and I think that woman was in Mandingo. I'm just trying to think like the acting she's been doing. First of all, she does not age, um,
Mm-mm.
but all the movies, her pedigree is incredible. But she's gonna get in her in her mature years, like in her 50s and 60s, and make more money now than she did in all those movies and all the stuff that she did. So I also think that if we want to see more of us telling our stories and doing these things, the example of Tyler is not just bringing actors and actresses who look like him, who have stories like his, but it's also paying them their worth. But that's what I keep hearing in the community, that they feel very honored. And I like that piece as much as I like his creativity.
He's very fair, very generous, more than fair, very generous.
Wow.
And a lot of times in his generosity will make you sign something to say you can't talk about it.
Mm.
I mean,
I like that
he's
generosity.
yeah, he's very, very thoughtful. Um, but there are others that even TD Jakes getting into the movie business, and
Hmm.
the Christian movies, and um there's just a lot. If we really stay
The
true.
Forge. Have you seen Forge?
No, I haven't, but I've heard so many good
I
things.
didn't want to see it because people kept telling me to see it, but I just think it was nicely done. But I'm seeing more and more. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just got excited because it's like black voice, black story, black faith story. Um,
Yeah.
but it's not about someone having to be down, and those are real things. I run a nonprofit organization that serves this. So I'm not besmirching those
I know what
realities,
you're
but
saying.
to
Yeah, yeah.
see folks about professional black folks who have faith and they want to make their community better and they want to develop leaders, when we move into this space and we tell our stories, it changes the game. And for all the things that our center will focus on, giving black people through speeches and plays and writing and having podcasts and musical expression, we want people to tell their stories, because what we are finding with some of the studies here at the University of Wisconsin is that feeling a great sense of belonging um, helps to mitigate some of the degenerative disease development inside of us. That the more we belong, and that typically happens when we can tell our stories, it helps us to live longer, fruitful, and more healthy lives. And so we got to have black stories out here because we got to have black people living longer.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think it serves the all of humanity.
Yes.
It serves us all to see these stories, and I'm so proud. Even Spike. I'm proud of Spike and Denzel, and the keeping August Wilson's legacy alive with the piano lesson, the movie, and his whole family being a part of that. There's some wonderful stuff happening,
I hope.
and
Yes.
yeah, and I feel like it's going to continue also because of the climate, right?
I was going to ask you about that. Yes. Tell me more. Do you think that
I mean, yeah, I do. I think that um, these times, it is times like
you
these
sound like
that
the
would
old church ladies in my church?
get my
In
preacher
these
on.
times, come on, in these here times.
It is times like this that bring us, of course, it can tear us apart or it can bring us together, but we historically have come together during these times. Even on a job, when you have a common boss that everybody don't like, it brings everybody
It sure
together,
does. Ha-
right?
Having
So
a common
I
goal or a common enemy can bring you together.
can bring you together. So I feel like, we are not gonna lie down. We are not gonna be silent. We're not, our stories are gonna be told, and
They
maybe they
must.
won't get green light in the same way they always have. So we're gonna help tell our own stories. And I believe that's what these times are gonna do. They're gonna bring us together to um continue to tell these stories, and you won't be able to claim DEI. That was a DEI hire or
Right,
whatever
right,
crap
right.
that is. But
Yes.
we're gonna just tell our own stories. We
And we're going to
will.
fund them. And we're going to make them we'll have to do better at this.
Yeah.
I've got a staff member um, who grew up in a church in Illinois where Mr. Johnson um, worshipped, the founder of BET.
Uh,
And his sister still lives here in Madison. I saw her at an ecumenical MLK service Sunday night. She's a retired nonprofit leader, educator here, and another brother was a deacon at that church. But my buddy tells me how when Mr. Johnson was trying to raise money to start BET, a lot of folks in our community are like, he's just asking for $50. And they're like, let me see what it's going to be. Now, you look back, I know people wish they'd given him that $50 because they'd be retired now. So I think and we couldn't imagine a black network also. In the 70s, nothing was 24 hours. That was prior to Ted Turner and CNN and all that stuff. But the point is, I think in times like these, we're going to see black people giving money to, supporting, donating to these opportunities, because what we can put in the system is more than what the government is pulling out, and we can make these things happen. And we have to continue to do that and be creative, and then support our creative ones, because that creates revenue to create jobs, to help more people to tell their stories. And so this call is that we need everyone to support black art. You know, Tyler Perry is not doing things just for the black community. We need everyone to support that. But also our community we'll step up, but we've got to do a better job of supporting our artists and our professionals.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I'm sorry,
understand the
please go ahead.
No, I was going to say the vision, we got to get the whole story. Like, now, so what? And then we have to understand your vision. See, when you told people you wanted to start this, you wanted to build this,
Yes.
a lot of people didn't fully understand
Correct.
the depth of your vision,
Right.
but they supported you anyway.
Yes, they did.
Because they knew you to be someone who would make it happen and someone who would bring something wonderful to the community. Not because I understand every iota of what he's doing and I believe it's going to be successful.
You're absolutely right.
So I think that we're hard on each other sometimes.
Yes, we can be. Yes,
Yeah. So,
this is real talk.
you
This is
know,
real family talk. But we got to,
yeah,
yes.
so if we can just, um, give a meeting to our brothers and sisters, hear them out, continue to go with your gut like many people did with you.
Yes.
And they said, I like what he's saying. I want to contribute to this. Continue to do that. Don't be harder on the brothers and sisters that come to you than you would be on anybody else. And invest.
Yes. One last thing, Miss Angela. We're going to put a link to your own show that you have up. But what are you working on? What can we direct people towards? If they want to just follow more of you, can your team give us those links? Because I would love to embed them in the show notes of this. But is there anything you just want to articulate? You may not be able to do it in detail, but like, what's on the horizon for you? Because we like seeing more of you.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. I can't talk that much about what I'm working on with work.
Okay, right.
But, I hope I'm looking forward to sharing it. And when I say work, acting.
I know what you mean. Team, we got to have her back
but
when her work comes out. When that work comes out. Yes,
have me
ma'am.
back.
Yes.
But the show is still going well on YouTube, Art and Spirit on YouTube. Subscribe.
Yes.
And I will, I'm on Instagram, Angela Rob's Child. Rob was my dad, so Angela Rob's Child. And and I'm that way on TikTok as well.
We'll put links to that, because you're a treasure, and we need to have people following you and following the work that you do.
I really feel very strongly about supporting you and what you're doing, and supporting artists to continue to do, because it gets so discouraging. But if we can keep those of us that have really, really varied stories to tell, I want to be a part of encouraging them to not give up, so that we get to enjoy them. So you get to go see a Wicked and come back blown away.
Wanting
Yeah.
to talk about it. I told my daughter
Yeah.
I want to go see it again. And
Yeah,
so
it was
with her,
really
yes,
wonderful.
yes. Well, listen, thank you for your time and for your work, man. Please give my love to Scott and Robbie. I'm hoping to get out to your part of the world sometime soon, and as always, I'm going to reach out to Scott so we can hang out, and I'll get a chance to see you and get a hug from Robbie. But thank you for your time. And listen, folks, my very special guest and very special friend is Miss Angela Robinson, actress. the Gracie Award winner. Am I saying that right? Was it the Gracie?
Mhm.
The Gracie
Yeah.
Award for Outstanding Female Actor. You got a star too. I heard that you have a star
It,
at the studios in Georgia, right?
yes,
I
yes.
just for your performance, and I got to start doing some googling because I forgot you played Dina Jones in Dreamgirls. Because I always think of you as an actress, but Pastor Peter told me that you can blow, that you have got a voice, and so that, and then also Miss Shug in Color Purple. So I'm gonna start googling. I'm gonna start googling that. Who
That's
when
all
you
right.
played Shug? Who was Celie? Who was
LaChance. LaChance was Celie. I played it with several Celies. The Celie that I played it on tour with was Fantasia.
That's right. That's what I was thinking about Fantasia. That's what I was trying to remember. Wow, wow,
Hmm.
wow.
We
So
had a ball.
I know you
Another
did.
wonderful actress.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
So listen, Miss
Yeah.
Angela, thank you for your time. Listen, folks, thank you so much for being a part of Black Like Me podcast. I just want to give just a special shout out to my team, Jeremy and Eli and Ariana and Don and Jakisha. Thank you all for the great work that you do to help us to bring these hundreds of episodes to you. And listen, folks, share
200.
the yes, right, 200. So come on, folks, listen to this. Share it. Broadway buffs and movie buffs. Share this episode and listen to this very interesting discussion about the implications of this powerful movie and have discussions around it. Don't just keep it to yourself because we want you to be a part of the change that you want to see. So have a great day, and thank you all listeners for being the very best part of Black Like Me podcast with Dr. Alex G. Have a great day.
Black like me. Black like me.
I want to thank you for taking time to listen to this episode of Black Like Me podcast with Dr. Alex G. If you like that opening track of our theme song, you can show your appreciation to Corey Saffold, who created that and produced it, and Marcus Fleming, my cousin, who's on vocals. I also want to say that this podcast was started with the generous support of the Human Family Unity Foundation, and so we always want to stop and thank them for that. For the many patrons who support us through our Patreon page, thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't just listen, but you support, you lean in, and you help this podcast to be what it is. And then I need to thank you, the listeners, who make a point of downloading this, listening to it, and sharing it. Without all of you, this podcast would not be what it is and what it's becoming. Thank you so much.